NRL Fantasy Keeper Edition, focusing on final rosters and the rosters you're going to want once buys are done and dusted. Now, I've got a special guest today, guys. I'm bringing on the legend, Jay-Z, the KFC King, and one of the co-hosts of the Echo Chamber. Mate, I'm going to let you say it. What are you currently ranked?
I am sitting in 7th after last week, mate. I was fortunate enough to dodge a few bullets, not owning Campbell or Siwa Wong, and so that sort of rocketed me from 18th to 7th. I've been sitting around that sort of top 10 since the start of the buys, and I'm ready to make a push for a win. It's my redemption arc from coming 4th last year.
But look, today I'm leaning on Jay-Z's knowledge here, and he's got a great roster right now, and I think he's really set up for the end game, and I think he's in a great position to make a push, particularly with the understanding that you've learned from last year. I know there was a few sort of mistakes that stung that you've absolutely nailed this year. So we're going to go through a final roster, and we're going to go through position by position, working from wing fullback all the way down to the bench. We're starting at wing fullback. You've got Latrell Mitchell, Jaden Campbell, James Tedesco as your ultimate three at the wing fullback spot. Talk me through that.
Yeah, so I think with Campbell and Latrell, they're kind of in the same boat. They're these two phenomenal attacking players who also are picking up just bulk kick meters every week. So Latrell, he maybe is a bit of a boom or bust guy. Like he may have quieter games, but since he's come back into the side, Humphreys has kind of taken a back seat to the kicking. I mean, we saw last week Latrell had about 600 kick meters, 3 try assists. He's in phenomenal form, and for the run home once post Origin, assuming he's fit, I think there's every chance that he's actually the best wing fullback on the run home. Jaden Campbell, we've seen what he's done all year. He is the out and out best wing fullback at the moment. And then James Tedesco kind of just has the best sort of buy schedule in the sense that he played all 3 majors. He's going to play next week. And he's going to play round 19 as well. So I think those are the 3 main guys that you want as your wing fullback.
Yeah, look, I can't argue with that. That's the 55 to 65 sort of trio in terms of that average. I could throw some names at you. We talk about Karaz. He's featuring later in this video as a bench guy, so I won't mention him. But Ryan Pappenhausen, if the Storm got hot enough, could float into that sort of mid-50s area at the bottom end of this. I'd take Hammer out, Ruben Garrick. Nwani Tawase is a really unknown quantity that you might just hang on to if you're low on trades. Lomax, and one that isn't a couple that aren't really being flagged too much is Drinkwater and Kalen Ponga. So Drinkwater, if the Cowboys get back to what they were doing at the start of the year, not the very start, but sort of the early season, then he could easily go back to that 55 average. And Kalen Ponga has been that guy before as well. So I think if you're a team that is a bit short on trades, they're guys that you could potentially hold on to. Now, let's turn to that next position, the center spot. You've gone Dylan Lucas, Herbie Farmworth, and Bo Firma as a backup option there. Pretty straightforward here. Is there anything you want to throw out there on this one?
Not really. I don't think there's a lot of pods in the center space. There's kind of just 2 guys that are clearly the best. I think I've owned both since about round 12. And they just keep on trucking. I mean, they're scoring 60 plus most weeks. Herbie is just outrageous. He's averaging 63 as a pure out and out center. That's basically never before seen
as well. Yeah. It's crazy.
It's mental. He was a big reason why I finished 4th last year, just owning him as a pod when a lot of people didn't have him. And I picked him up maybe just before the buys, and he's just been electric ever since.
Yeah. I remember me and you got on at the same time, and McAllister kept giving us crap when Herbie would have a quiet half, and then he'd just heat up in the second half and have 5 offloads. So, yeah, the thing about those guys is they've got the best base and the best ceiling, which is just really rare to have. So you got to have them. The half spot, you've gone Nathan Cleary, Isaiah Katoa. You don't seem to have too many halves on the extended bench there either. So I guess Fogarty is your third guy. Is there anyone else you'd consider here? Could Jerome Hughes elevate into this area? Could Nico Hines, return to form? Is there anyone else you'd consider?
I mean, I think your third half is going to have to be one of those options. Maybe the more appealing one's actually Luke Metcalf. Just because of how well he's playing and how well the Warriors are going. You saw on the weekend when he was injured, they lost to a very understrength Panthers side. But this is probably the least exciting position of basically every position in the game, is because you have Cleary, who's the out and out number 1, Katoa, whose base has been massive and he's come on in leaps and bounds as a player. And then the other guys, they can score well. I think maybe Adam Reynolds is a pod that could be worth considering. Jerome Hughes kind of falls into the Pappenhausen bucket for me, though, where they are pretty good scorers, but they're not like the best scorers in the position. And it's pretty clear to me from watching Melbourne every week that they're not quite there yet as a team. I mean, we saw them play South on the weekend, who were very, very undermanned, and they only won by a point. Hughes had a try in like the first 5 minutes and still scored a 45.
Mm.
So I don't think he's quite there this year. Last year, he was probably the biggest reason that I lost fantasy because I didn't have him. But I'm not going to use that as fuel to buy him. But if you don't have a second half for next week, then he's a good option.
Yeah, I will shout out one other player too. I think Cam Munster has hints of potentially getting there. And what we saw at the start of the year was basically no games above 100 meters. In recent weeks, we've seen him, I think it's 6 of the last 7 or something like that, 7 of the last 8. He's gone 100 meters plus. And for me, that's the big barometer when you look at Cam Munster. Now, minimal attacking stats the last couple of weeks, but floating in that sort of 40s to 50s area. You know, a couple of back to back 70 plus scores. If the Storm get hot at the right time, and if Jerome Hughes stays kind of passive here, then Cam Munster could be one that gets super, super hot. So I'm holding on to him potentially all year.
Yeah, I love
Now,
Munster. I had him for most of the rounds until I think I traded him out round 15. But yeah, he's clearly heating up, and I mean, when he's heating up, Queensland play well, and when Queensland play well, he comes back a different player. So I'm nervous for the Blues in Game 3, and Munster absolutely could have a couple of monster scores. Like if Melbourne are going to heat up, it's going to be because of his running game and his offloading,
mhm.
which he's finally getting back to after probably starting the season a little quiet.
Yeah, money potential cut price keeper. And then going into the middle forward spot, I'll go edge actually first. So edge, you've gone Jacob Preston, Keon Kolomatangi. Do you consider Couchman to be a candidate that might get back there? So Luciano Leilua on the bench there. Couchman probably going to play that Dylan Egan type role, bulk minutes in the middle, along with starting on the edge. Could he elevate into this conversation?
Yeah, well, I have him as a bench guy. Like he's in my team. I certainly won't be trading him out. But I do think those that Preston and Kalamatangi are just that kind of level above.
Mm,
If Couchman was a pure out and out middle, then yeah, I think he's on the same level as Kalamatangi in terms of his scoring. But at the moment, we're looking at a 60 average Jacob Preston, and in his current role, Kalamatangi is like a 65 to 70 average player. So I think they're the two clear top edges, and then you have your sort of guys like KPP and Eli Katoa and Ewan Aitken, who are all sort of mid 50s guys.
yeah. A few other guys that are floating around. Hudson Young is the highest average at the edge spot right now, but carrying injury, he misses round 19 as well as Origin round 18. So not that attractive right now. Very try scoring reliant too. So even if he does come back fully fit, not super hot for me. Eli Katoa, you mentioned before, as a depth piece as well. You know, guys like Kick Out, Curran, Saw Wong, like they're not in the picture. I will say one that could get hot at the right time if you're a coach who has not a lot of money. Gus Crichton will be below 600k coming into the run home, and if you have the money, you're going to go for these top guys. But if you don't have the money, Gus Crichton, just as well as anyone, could average 60 on the run home with how good the Roosters are.
Yeah, I think my concerns with him, and I'm a long time Angus Crichton lover. I think he's brilliant. His tries are down this year, and it's probably a reflection of how the Roosters are playing, where they're sort of Savala's such a ball dominant half, and Sandon's more of a run first guy. So maybe if Sam Walker comes back in the side, and all of a sudden Angus is getting a lot more ball, then that might change things. But for me, at the moment, he's just not quite there yet. It seems for whatever reason his base is down. Like he's not making anywhere near as many tackles. He's still getting good ball. He's still throwing offloads, but it's somewhat reliant on him scoring more tries on the run home, which he's absolutely capable of.
Yeah, I think Sammy Walker's the big one there because you see it when you watch the Roosters, right? Sandon Smith, he uses the decoy and he runs himself. That's sort of his play style. He's a running six. It does suffocate the guys outside him when it comes to fantasy production, but mate, he's playing good footy in real life, so they're not going to change it. But Gus, yeah, it could be a cheap option you go for. In the middle forward section, we've got Payne Haas, Terrell May, Isaiah Yo. Man, Isaiah Yo, 754k right now, dropping in price too. He's one of those ones, and you look at your team situation, you think, all right, do I want to use these useless trades to try and upgrade my scoring slightly this week? Or do I want to save a few trades so I can shift a few things around and get Isaiah Yo? I think Yo is a great example of why we want to save trades because you want to be able to jump on him at 700k in round 19 or round 20. Talk me through this though. Haas May Yo, pretty straightforward. Was there anyone else you considered in that top three?
I think Adam Fanua-Blake is probably
Mm.
someone worth mentioning. His minutes have really shot up the last few weeks, and I think that's kind of a reflection on how reliant Cronulla are on him as a side at the moment. They're really struggling for go forward. I think Oregon Kafusi's just gone down injured, and so if he's playing 60 plus minutes, he can be that godlike scorer that we saw at the Warriors last year. I think he was just under a 60 average, or maybe just over. So he's definitely worth considering. However, I think Penrith are going to need Isaiah Yeo to keep playing if they want to make finals. They don't have the privilege that they've had in recent seasons where they could rest him, and then Haas and Terrell are just the two best players in fantasy. So
Yep.
um, I will say for mid though, there's one guy that I'm super keen on who is playing with a sternum injury at the moment,
Yep.
Tino Fasula. So he was just on an absolute tear before Origin. I think he must have copped a sternum in either game one or the game after it. It's because his minutes have been down, his production's been down, and it's clearly impacting him. But before that, you look at his scores and you've got 61,
Mm.
60, 73s back to back, 65. So the potential for him to be that sort of top tier keeper is there, and he's getting really, really cheap. I think he's got an 80 break even this week. So one to keep an eye on after Origin if he recovers from that sternum
Yeah.
injury.
679K right now, dropped 60K last week on the back of a 24-point game. So now you're spot on. He's very high on the watch list. The other one I'm going to shout out here too, Connor Watson. So if you're a team who, again, you're a bit short on cash, you need someone, maybe a bit of cover at hooker as well. 666K is basically his starting price of the year. So if you liked him at the start of the year, you'll like him now. He played 80 minutes backing up from Origin, and he's not playing massive minutes in Origin anyway. And the Roosters are getting hot at the right time. They don't have Brandon Smith anymore. Iolu is pretty solid, but I think that just moves Watson more into the lock role. So you could argue that maybe there's a bit more depth in that Roosters forward pack, and that will squeeze him out a bit. But then you look at Saw Wong getting hurt, and you think, oh well, that pushes someone into the edge rotation who was otherwise going to be a middle, and it frees things up again. So I like the idea of Connor Watson again as a bit of a discount option if you're a bit of a poorer coach. Now, tearing into the hooker spot, Aaron Clark is the one there. Aaron Clark is Aaron Clark, right? Like he's pumping out a pretty easy set of numbers. I'm looking at the bench this week, probably a 65 in 60 minutes kind of bench there for him this week as well. I think we know what's going on with Aaron Clark. Are there any other hookers? Like we've talked about Connor Watson there as well. Do you think Damien Cook could potentially be productive enough to be in an end game sort of roster? Do you think Harry Grant, Egan, Brayley's recent form, any of these guys are worth considering as a bit of a pod?
I think Cook has the potential. I mean, he's almost entirely reliant on which role he's going to get. So we saw, I think it was back-to-back 70-minute games where I think he scored back-to-back 70s. And on the run home last year for South Sydney, he was an elite scorer for basically the whole end game of the season. Um, it does depend though. I think what the Dragons have done this week says to me that he might be back to that middle kind of role where he plays
Yeah.
70 minutes. And if he does that, then well, he's absolutely a keeper. If you don't have Clark for whatever reason, look at you, Longy, then yeah, he's a pretty impressive guy to own. And then Harry Grant. Harry Grant's a guy that just he tends to heat up the closer to finals we get. And we've almost seen that, right? Like game 2 of Origin, he had a really good game. Last week he scored a try early against South and had a 68. I don't know if I'll start with him ever again, given how poorly he started the season, but he's certainly one to look out for, and he's just pretty cheap as well.
And then if someone's really struggling money wise, I'll throw out Jeremy Marshall King is getting very cheap. Now you'd need to see signs of a turnaround there, but he's going to be in the 400s at some point relatively soon, which is a big discount on the start of the year. So you could eye him off. And if you just play for fun, you might go with Coruscant as well, who can go 100 plus, has done it this year, but probably isn't the safest option out there. And then Reese Robson's going to be cheap too, but you probably want to focus on that top section. Now, into the bench here and those flex spots, I'll throw out some names here and you can talk me through sort of what you're thinking here. So, we already talked about Couchman. I'm keen to hear your theory on why you're going Karaz over some other options there as well. And then you've mentioned Tarpanay, Aitken, Tino, these types of guys, basically whoever you have, where it's probably not worth trading them out for an extra 5 points of average kind of deal. So, talk me through what you're thinking here in terms of bench composition and how you're going to prioritize structuring yours.
Yeah, so I'm someone that likes to set up his side so that I always have cover in case of like basically worst case scenarios. Break glass if needed, plug Jacob Kiraz in. So I also have Scott Drinkwater, who I don't think I'll be trading out, but I don't think is strong enough to be a week in, week out 17 player. Um, Jacob Kiraz has that excellent cover and still scores at a keeper level. So I think he's averaging about 57 this year.
Mm,
And I think it's actually he had a really good last year, but it's really noticeable that he's kind of lifted a bit this year for the Bulldogs.
mm.
He seems more involved. It just seems impossible to stop his offload. As someone who hasn't owned him until this week, I've been so frustrated watching him because
Legit,
he
right?
is just a jet. He is so good. Um, so I think having diversity in your bench is important. I sort of talked through that there were a lot of mids that you want on your bench, but if you end up just having mid, then you run the risk of shorting yourself in other positions, right? So for me, I'll have guys like Cook and Drinkwater who provide depth, and then even like a Latu Fainu who I've cashed down to this week who provides half cover. So it I'd say be careful because if something like this happens again, where Campbell goes down, Tedesco's on a bye, Sharp goes down as well. Some people
Mm.
just lost their complete starting wing fullback last week. So you need to have cover in these positions. You don't want to have to be making trades just for 1 or 2 rounds.
Yep, I have all three of those guys. So I get it. Luckily, I've got the non-keepers, Garrick and Turbo, sitting in my side, ready to step up against the Tigers. So honestly, not the worst matchup to play them.
Hmm.
On Karaz, you're talking about the difference there from last year to this year. I just grabbed the numbers. So last year averaged 4.5 tackle breaks a game and 2 offloads a game in full games. This year, that 4.5 has gone up to 6.1, and the offloads have doubled from 2 to 4. Now, it factors in a few games he was playing at center last year, all that sort of thing, but doubling the offload count, it's definitely been noticeable. And there's been a few games where he's had a few errors come out of his game from looking for those offloads. And I've seen those as a non-owner and thought, oh, maybe they'll get him to rein it in. They have not. They have not. There's been no sign of slowing down. So, yeah, he's just going to keep on doing that.
It's kind of crazy. Like just from a pure football perspective, non-fantasy related, it's not like these are junk offloads. He's running, the defensive line is sort of set and they're retreating, and then he gets an offload and they make another 10, 20 meters. It's a big reason why the Bulldogs are as successful as they've been this season. He's just so strong in yardage sets.
Yeah, no, he's been unbelievable. Now, I'll throw a few names at you because if someone's a bit, lower down on price, they're a bit, uh, they're struggling for the salary cap basically, and they're looking at a few different potential smoky pods. How much do you like these guys? So, Daly Tree Evans.
Hate it. I don't. He's just not quite there this year. I think maybe Father Time's finally caught up with him.
Yep.
He's still scoring okay, but I think we've gone past the days of Cherry Evans having that sort of 90-point potential on any given week. Like I think he's got 2 scores over 70 this year, and everything else is below 60.
Yeah, he's been plotting. Braden Best.
He's one I actually kind of like. I haven't looked at Newcastle's run home, but he's like, I mean, watch how he played against the Dolphins. He is
Mm,
basically Newcastle's biggest attacking weapon outside Kalen Ponga, and given Kalen Ponga is at fullback, he's going to be giving Best a lot of the ball, and so he started the year red hot as well. So every chance that Best could score massive. The problem is that he plays in a position where we have just 2
mm.
legendary status keepers.
I will say though he's a lot cheaper than Herbie. So if you're really struggling cash wise, like I've seen a few teams, Jay Z, who are they've started mid seasons, their first year, that kind of deal. For them, I'm recommending like Samuel Afinu almost, like these types of players at a cheap price who are going to be keepers every week. Then how about Zach Lomax?
I kind of like it. I kind of I looked at him a little this week because for me, while I do need someone in round 18, I just having a good wing fullback this week. I even looked at Latrell, but I think him not playing 19 is too much of a deterrent.
Mm,
But Lomax is kind of that in between where he's really good. He maybe is a tier below the top wing fullbacks, but all the top wing fullbacks keep dying. So having a goal kicking wing fullback who is basically the core of his team's attack at the moment, you could do far worse.
And last one I'm going to throw at you here. This is contingent on a few things happening. So he's 450K at this point. Like in the future, he gets the starting half spot. He's playing next to Matt Burton. It's Lockie Galvin.
Yeah, I mean, what you need to look for in your final size is, and it's not just about having the best players in every position. Like in an ideal world, yes, you have the top player in every position playing every role. But sometimes you don't have enough cash. Like you just said, some teams won't have enough cash to spend up in every spot. And of all the positions in fantasy this year, I think half is probably the one where you can pot a bench spot the most. And if Galvin ends up starting for the Bulldogs, I mean, we saw last year at the Tigers, the worst team in the comp, that he was a 50 average player. If he gets into a team that's just completely rolling and he has a real role, then there's a chance that he goes above that. So could be a real cut price option. But like you said, a couple things need to fall in his way.
Yeah, I mean, we saw how he was with Stafford Toa earlier this year. Imagine him with, Preston, Kickow, Crichton, Carraz, Bronson Zeri. Like, he's going to have an absolute field day. Anyway, thank you for jumping on, Jay-Z. Look, we'll do a deeper video as well on this when we get to round 19 on which keepers to target. But the point of today, and we were having a chat about this, is a lot of people are looking at a lot of silly trades right now, and they're throwing too much at this next couple of weeks. All about preserving a bit and focusing on that end game, right? So appreciate you jumping on, man. Rising up from 18th to 7th last week. Do you see yourself getting the first in the next month, or when do you think that happens?
I think it has to happen post Origin. I'm like 130, 140 behind first, and while I think I have enough cash to make the climb from where I am to first, it's more we've got a couple of weeks where there's probably not that much leeway. Well, in saying that, I gained 80 ranks from first last week, but I think I can do it. It's just a matter of timing my trades right and not using trades on sort of silly things, like you just pointed out. Like I'm not going to be trading in a subpar non-keeper just to play round 18. I'm looking at guys that are genuine final team options. Like I said, just send Latrell Mitchell, even like a Zach Lomax, who, yeah, they might not play 18, but they're going to be in my final side. So I think it's all about sort of trade efficiency and not wasting trades at this point of the season.
Words of wisdom from the KFC King. Guys, if you want to hear more of Jay-Z, he comes on our channel every now and then. So obviously we've known each other for a bloody decade, mate. So yeah, we can keep doing this. But also if you check out the Echo Chamber, just search it on YouTube, Fantasy Echo Chamber. They're more of a no holds bars sort of R18 plus kind of fantasy show. And they don't reply to my comments as well. So, get them to sort that out, Jay-Z. But they are a good watch, very good analytics, guys. So you can check them out there. Cheers, mate.